Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lauren and here today we are talking about one of the most important things that I think people skip every time they're about to do any sort of intuitive work or psychic readings. Now if you're new here, welcome. My name is Lauren and I am here on my channel teaching you guys how to strengthen your psychic abilities. So if you are interested in psychic development, be sure to hit that like button below, subscribe so that you can see all of the videos that I've got coming your way. Now let's talk about some verbiage here, because if you have been around my channel for a while, I have used what I'm describing in this video with like multiple words. And that's getting centered before a reading, it's getting grounded before a reading. Some people would just flat out say meditating. A lot of people also just call it like becoming quiet, like getting your mind quiet before a reading. Or even the word becoming present. So if you've heard any of those on my channel, I'm basically talking about the same thing. And my point here is to talk about that space right before we do intuitive work where we actually are calming our minds to get into a more present state before we start receiving psychic hits. Now I want to talk about the word grounding really quick, because although I would sort of consider grounding to be a centering technique, it's kind of its own technique in itself. And that's basically, grounding is you're anchoring. You are tying yourself to this physical plane in the hopes that you don't just like float away with your psychic ability, if that makes sense. And I would say I don't have this problem. If anything, I have more of a problem turning on my psychic ability and getting to that very like crown chakra, very intuitive state. But some people, when they get into doing intuitive work, they get so kind of high up there, is like how I like to describe it. Their feet are not touching the ground, their head is in the clouds. Like that's how well they are connected to intuitive work, that it's a lot harder for them to get grounded after a reading, to come down, to turn off their psychic ability. And so grounding specifically is like an anchoring technique where people just visualize or do a meditation and imagine them kind of like anchoring to the earth so that they don't float away. So think about like tying a balloon to like a chair or something. That's how I like to think of grounding. So grounding is technically a centering or becoming present technique, but it has just like a little bit of an extra meaning or purpose that not everybody necessarily needs or maybe wants to do. There are other techniques that you can do. So point being, with all this verbiage, I like to explain it up front because there's a lot of people out there, a lot of people use different terms, and a lot of people get very confused and very like angry about when people use these words wrong. And so I'm kind of giving them all to you. So if you hear it in different contexts, you kind of know-ish what everyone is talking about. But becoming present or becoming centered, this is really just about physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, just getting into the state to let psychic hits come to you. Now, this doesn't need to happen all the time throughout the day. You guys probably know that as you're going about your day, you probably get psychic hits. But if you're sitting down to do a psychic exercise, or you really want to get some good information, maybe you're reading somebody else, that's when you want to really practice this becoming centered and becoming present before a reading. So why this is so incredibly important, I think it's literally one of the things that people just zoom by because they want to get the information, they want to get through it, they want to skip this part. I mean, I am a culprit of this. I do this all the time, and I have to constantly remind myself, no, I need to get into that space before I have a reading. So like literally 10-15 minutes before I have readings with people, I will make sure I have space to do this. So there's a lot of problems that arise when we don't allow time and space for doing this, and we will get into like what it looks like exactly and how you can do it. But when you don't get centered and present before a reading, it's a lot harder to distinguish your thoughts, the left brain, the analytical mind that we always talk about, versus the right brain, that psychic intuitive mind. And really what it is you are getting present with your thoughts. You are not trying to get rid of your thoughts, but you're just trying to get into a state of knowing, oh, okay, those are Lauren's thoughts. That's me before I turn on my psychic ability. So then when I do turn on my psychic ability, I know what was already there. I know what was already Lauren before I start receiving something new. Whereas if you just jump into it, you might have all of this stuff going on and you've got Lauren thoughts and you've got psychic thoughts all mixed in, and it's really hard to differentiate between the two. By not doing this, it also just makes it a lot harder for you to hear the psychic hits, because if you've got more, like if you have 75% just like your stuff, your grocery list, the things you got to do next, it's like that monkey mind of all the stresses, all the anxieties that you've got going on. Maybe it's not stress or anxiety, but it's just, what you've been doing, what you're about to do. You have to kind of set that aside and say, you know what, I am here, I am present for this reading, this person, and I'm going to forget about what I've been doing for the last hour, the last day. I'm not going to worry about what I've got to do after this. And really, again, I think a lot of people are adverse to this because they think they have to get rid of all of their thoughts. I made a video ages and ages ago, and I remember somebody saying, do I have to meditate? I hate meditating. And that has always stuck with me because I think so many people kind of feel the same way of they don't like the idea of getting calm and centered. And I think this says a lot about us as a society, that we have such a hard time calming down. We're so go, 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 we're in front of our social media all the time. Everything is just so fast paced. And it makes us uncomfortable to really sit and do this. Really, at the end of the day, this just starts to add in more issues when you're trying to pick up psychic hits. You're fighting more of that left brain, and so if we can just minimize the amount of left brain information that's happening, it just makes your life a lot easier. It makes, that psychic information coming through a lot clearer. It also makes it so that your readings are more accurate and, you're not confusing, your thoughts versus psychic thoughts. I mean, overall, just doing this will make the reading, make the intuitive session, intuitive work, exercise, whatever you're doing, just a lot more intuitive, and you can trust the information that's coming through more. So what exactly does getting centered or grounded or present before a reading look like? Basically, it's just like, it's meditating. And I know that people hate to hear that, but really this is whatever you need to do to get to that state, to get where there's less, not completely gone, but less monkey mind. You want your thoughts to be gone. So you could listen to a meditation track. Usually I just sit in silence and I try to breathe, take a bunch of deep breaths, and I kind of imagine my thoughts coming in and then I let them go. And I say, hey, not here to worry about the things that I got to do after this. I'm going to let these thoughts go. I know I can come back to them at any time. And I start to turn my thoughts into clouds and I just let them pass me by. Another thing you can do is literally imagine a curtain going down the center of your mind and kind of blocking off your left brain and saying, left brain, you're resting right now. We're engaging with that right brain instead. Any sort of mindfulness or meditation activities, even if it's for 30 seconds, I think is incredibly powerful for getting you into this state. I do think that it becomes quicker the more familiar you are with meditation, with calming your mind down, with centering. So it's not something that is always going to take you 5-10 minutes to do. I don't even think it needs to take that much time. But I think a lot of people avoid doing it because they feel like they need to do a 20-minute meditation. And really all you need to do is really take a minute, maybe find a really good 1-minute meditation that really calms you down, gets you centered. Especially a body scan meditation, really, coming back to your body so you're not focused on the past or the future. You're just really focusing on the present. So even, again, mindfulness meditations, focusing on now and in the moment. Even if you don't find one you like, you could record one of yourself. Let me know if you guys would want me to make one. It would be super easy for me to do that. As long as you are trying to just get present, I know I'm repeating myself, but it's making sure that you're not focusing on anything else. You're not focusing on the past, you're not focusing on the present. You are making all of those left brain thoughts a lot less so that your mind is quieter, so that when you do ask psychic questions, it's a lot easier to hear them because you're not thinking about all these other things. It's getting rid of the monkey mind. That's all it really is. So you can listen to nothing, you can use an app, you can set a timer and just kind of meditate for a couple minutes. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter as long as you do it and you feel like it works. You could even go out and just hug a tree. You could even put your feet in the ground and kind of anchor or ground yourself. You could hug a tree for a solid minute. You could just sit outside in a rocking chair and, feel the sun on your face and just kind of get into that state on your own. Just whatever it is, just make sure you slow down before reading. That's all you got to do. Slow down, take a breath. It really makes such a huge difference before you start asking for those intuitive hits. So I'll give you a few centering techniques right now, just in case you don't really like any of those, but I highly recommend you try them. It's a pretty simple thing to do. It's one of those things that when you do it, you're just like, wow, that was easy and I was making it into a big deal for nothing. And if I just do that every time, it makes all of this psychic work so much easier. Another way that I like to get centered is I actually grab like oils, and as I'm meditating, I kind of smell them. And I've set the intention that like frankincense is a very intuitive oil for me. There's just something about it that makes me feel like I'm going deeper into my intuition. So I'm kind of just like smelling it like this. I might even like put some of it on my hands so that throughout the reading, if I'm like talking and I'm smelling it, I'm kind of reminding myself to get back into that state. Again, working with like plants by like going outside and meditating with like plants or nature, putting your feet in the ground is another huge one. You can also grab like a crystal, and maybe a crystal that's specifically meant for like intuition, like amethyst, and you can meditate with that crystal. And so both with like the nature and crystals, you are kind of maybe getting in tune with the vibration that's being put off by that plant or crystal. Feel that vibration. Everything has a very unique feeling. It might be like pulsing really fast, really slow. It might feel like a circular movement. It might get like really hot or something like that. But feeling it and trying to match your energy to that thing, that is something that will get you centered and grounded pretty quickly. If you're very much so like a very physical person, you could do Qigong before. You could even do like a really quick like yoga meditation. There is yoga like moves and like, what is it called? You can tell I don't do yoga, but like sequences that are made for your intuition and kind of made to get you more in that state. They're less, like physical and more just kind of like mental. Obviously, a technique that's definitely more about grounding is imagining you are anchoring maybe through one of your chakras. A lot of people do the root chakra. They kind of imagine a cord going from that chakra down into the earth, wrapping around the core of the earth and kind of holding them there. And then they'll kind of keep that there until after they're done, and then they'll release that. So that's a really popular one you've probably seen as well. Honestly, just sitting and meditating and imagining your bubble, which I've talked about several times. Usually I use a bubble for protection, but if you are, really imagining that bubble, taking a really long time to feel where it's at, in a way you are kind of meditating, you are becoming present, you are very much in tune with like your energy and your space. So that can definitely be a way to get centered and grounded. That's also kind of just like working on your protection. As long as you're giving it enough time to where you feel like when you started it and when you ended it, you are feeling less monkey mind, you feel like you're more in a space that you can receive that psychic information. Another technique that's a little bit more of a grounding technique is breathing with your feet. And I love doing this. And it's literally imagining that your breath is in your feet. And imagine you're breathing in and out through your feet. And I think it's just a super cool like experience. It's a way, again, more of grounding. You can do this both before and after, but really my big thing is just kind of doing all of these exercises beforehand, because it's more about getting into an intuitive mind. I feel like we can usually switch back into our left brain pretty quickly. Like we don't need to recenter ourselves after a reading. If you feel like you do, absolutely like go for it. But I find that, if you're very process oriented and you're like, where do I put this? This is really just in kind of the before state of doing sort of intuitive work. In my old video that I called like getting centered, my really old video, you can see me doing a pranayama exercise. And this is kind of just imagining your breath going up the front of yourself and down the back of yourself. And almost if you need to imagine a little elevator, breathing in as this elevator goes up and then breathing out as this elevator goes down. And so if you want to see that played out a little bit more, I demonstrated that with my friend. But focusing on your body at the same time that you are focusing on your mind, The combination of the two is really what helps you to get centered. You're centered in your body, you're centered in your mind, you are here, you are present. And then my last favorite way is actually to do candle meditations. Now this is not the same as like candle manifestations. This is for those of you who have a very hard time visually just like being still, like you need to let your eyes wander. Lighting a candle and just concentrating on the candle flame and doing all this same stuff of like letting these thoughts pass, like trying to kind of lessen the monkey mind while you're staring at the candle flame. And what this does is it gives you something to look at. And if you don't have a candle, you know, if you can't do that before every reading, you can find something equivalent. I'm hearing like my guides say like you could even just pull up like videos online of like nature scenes so that you have something to look at. And you're doing all of that same stuff while you're letting your eyes have something to like, I don't know, fixate on. So the most important thing here, you guys, is just to do it. Just please do it. It makes such a huge difference between getting good psychic information versus not getting very good psychic information. It really is the key to staying out of your left brain and getting into your psychic mind. You gotta slow down. You got to get into a quieter, calmer state. Now, if you need more help or you have more questions, I do have a Patreon where I do like Q&As every month where people can ask me questions. And I'm bringing this up because this video actually came about from that. One of my Patreon members, one of you guys asked me about kind of how you can deal with this, and so it kind of inspired this video. I hadn't really thought about it before and realized I kind of needed to do an update on my channel. So if you want to join the Patreon, you can sort of influence what ends up being created and me helping you guys out and everybody out there who is a subscriber to my channel. Alrighty, you guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope that this video helped. Please give it a big thumbs up if it did, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.